"Turn right here, Nance. That's the driveway," said Ned, pointing and bouncing like a kid on his way to the zoo. I think it's cute when he nerds out about a bit of historical trivia or one of my dad's cases, and I was excited to work with him on his investigation. I put on my turn signal even though there wasn't a single car in sight, and my car rolled through the imposing iron gate onto a long gravel drive lined with 2 rows of overgrown cypress trees. Ned went into tour guide mode. "The guy who owned this place was a ruthless water baron. The farmers and the townspeople hated him. He made most of his money by charging such high prices for water that family farmers were eventually forced to sell their land to him at a steep discount." "Is that Coffin Hall?" I asked, looking at the ivy-covered brick building ahead of us. It looked more like a witch's cottage than a haunted library.
"No, that's the guardhouse. The Coffins made a lot of enemies back in the day."
The driveway snaked past the guardhouse and along the iron fence that marked the edge of the property, up and around a large grassy hill. As we drove, I caught glimpses of a many-roofed mansion at the top. With its trees and mossy statues, the Coffin estate could almost be a park. Except the grass had grown long, and there were no picnickers, no gardeners, no couples strolling, no bird watchers, not even birds. The estate was completely deserted.
"This place is huge," Ned continued. "The land belongs to the city now. It's a public park. The library's public too, but almost nobody knows about it because it's so far from the center of town."
Well, who wouldn't want to hang out on the grounds of a haunted library?
"I know, right? It's the ideal date spot," Ned said and laughed. "Anyway, after Hieronymus Coffin died, he left his entire estate to his daughter, Harriet. Then she disappeared, leaving behind a cryptic will that said she wanted Coffin Hall to be converted into a library for rare books. Now it has the largest archive of historical documents in the whole state."
"In other words, heaven for a bookworm like Ned," I interrupted. "I'm having trouble getting past the last name, Coffin. It just seems too spooky to be real. But I'm also hungry. Did you pack sandwiches?"
"Turkey and cheese." Hieronymus was not a nice guy, but he must have been proud of himself because he named his daughter Hieronymus Jr.
I furrowed my brow. I thought her name was Harriet.
"That was the name she went by," Ned explained. "Would you want to be called Hieronymus Coffin Jr.?
"Harriet Coffin is better," I agreed. "Not a bad name for a sleuth, actually."
"I wonder what happened to her. Before she became a ghost, I mean."
"Nobody knows?"
Ned shrugged. "In 1925, a few days after she turned 30 and came into her full inheritance, she just disappeared. She didn't leave a note. All her belongings were still in the house, and there was no sign that she'd packed or made travel plans. Her relatives, her father's lawyer, his business partners, none of them heard anything. Harriet had vanished, and so had the fortune she'd just inherited."
"How did you learn all this? Wikipedia?"
"There's not much about the Coffins online, and Coffin Hall has a pretty basic website. I actually heard the story on a podcast."
No offense, Ned, but podcasts aren't always reliable historical sources.
"That's exactly why we're going to Coffin Hall, to dig up some primary sources for my own podcast. Look, that must be the Coffin family cemetery." Ned pointed.
I stopped the car and looked over at the cluster of graves arranged around a 3-tiered fountain made of white marble. The basin was dry, and the cemetery was surrounded by a tall chain-link fence. I noticed something yellow moving on the other side of the fence. It looked like there was some kind of excavation going on, complete with dump trucks and an earth mover. Ned punched my arm lightly.
"Eyes on the road, Drew."
"You sound just like my dad. We're not even moving." I pretended to be disgusted, but couldn't contain my giggles. Then I put my foot on the accelerator, and we made the final ascent to the hilltop. As the mansion came into view, I almost stopped the car again. There are a lot of grand old buildings in River Heights and the surrounding areas, but Coffin Hall might take the cake.